Today we celebrated Simchat Torah and Shmini Atzeret. Shmini Atzeret actually is a hallowed day in Jewish tradition. We do Yizkor on this day. And there we go. I think we're up. Yes. Yeah, I have to check and make sure it's the shirt I'm wearing. Welcome. And great. So, since it's Simchat Torah, there's been something that we had our celebration on Sunday and then this morning. And there's something that has come into my mind as we celebrate Simchat Torah that I can't believe I never really thought about this before. I did a wedding on Sunday evening, and as I was thinking about the wedding, this concept occurred to me. Just would like to share it with you. We make a big deal out of the idea that we finish reading the Torah and then right away we start reading it again. That the concept here is that endings lead to beginnings. Sometimes an ending of one story leads to beginning of a story that's exactly the same, but most of the time we come to an end and then there's some kind of beginning. One could say that our meditations are full of that, right? We gather here for the half hour, and when we're done, we're finished with this meditation, this mindfulness exercise, and then we begin the rest of our evening. And it can be said about every single aspect of our life. Something ends and something new begins. With every breath we take, one breath ends, a new breath begins. Hello, Kathy. Hello, Helene. And this constant ending and beginning is really an invitation for us to notice those endings, to notice when we have finished something, to keep in our minds kind of where we are in the journey, in our separate little smaller journeys that lead us to the next and to the next and to the next thing. So that when we consider our endings and our beginnings, we look at them as opportunities. I would say, I'd call it opportunities to begin anew. Opportunities to find something different than has happened before. And that each one of these, I'm calling them like these, in the Torah, at the end of the book of Numbers, it talks about these are the journeys of the Israelites, and they go through each of the stops along the way. That's what life is. Life is a series of stops and starts and stops and starts and stops and starts, moving from one kind of status to another status, right? Anytime anything happens, this is how I made it work in this wedding, right? Is you go from being two separate people to being a unit together. When you have a child, you go from just being two people to being three, or then four, or sometimes, like if you're Cantor Weiss, three automatically show up at the same time. And then each one of these things, there is an ending and there is a beginning. It does, beg the question, the biggest question of all, which is what happens to us after, at the end of our lives. But certainly, I don't know what it is, but there certainly is a beginning of some kind. So, why then do we, when it comes to the Torah, hello Chuck and Lisa, why do we end and then begin the same exact stories? Why is it that we don't really end? We just continue on a cycle. And one might say that most of our lives are kind of made up of these subtle endings and beginnings of the same thing over and over. Each day there's an ending to the day. We go to sleep, we wake up, and we might say we're having the same next day, right? We had this Tuesday. Go to sleep tonight, we wake up, tomorrow's a Wednesday. Maybe there's some different things we're doing, but it's our lives and it's a continuation of the story, almost like a new chapter or a new page. But if we look at it where that each day ends and tomorrow is a new opportunity to do something completely different, that's a little bit mind-boggling for people like me who are creatures of habit. How uncomfortable would I be if I didn't do kind of my usual stuff to get myself up in the morning. How would I feel if there was something that was just completely out of the ordinary, completely outside of the bonds of what I'm used to in my life? You know, more and more I'm thinking maybe those moments really are important, and that, you know, again, we get to this having control over exactly what's happening at every moment. Although it does give you a little bit more of a peace of mind, it might not be the best way for us to live, right? That we need to have some kinds of adventures. We need to have something that shakes us out of our slumber, as it were. But I just want to kind of go back to this, that for the Torah and for the reading of the Torah, the reason we begin again and we read the same exact stories is that the stories are the same, but I'm not. Every year I feel like I'm a little bit different. Imagine I've lived as I've lived, and I never really made that connection between every single thing we do having an ending and then having a beginning. How can that be? Maybe I just wasn't ready for that concept. Have to be ready inside. And I think what we're trying to do with our mindfulness and with our meditation and with our breathing and with our connecting to ourselves as a being on this planet, as opposed to a doer on this planet for just this time we're together, is that it gives us an invitation and an opportunity to look at our lives a little bit differently, to look at our lives through another lens, and to find ways where we can start new. Something ends, something begins. Sometimes we're not even aware of an ending and a beginning, but certainly it's happening around us all the time. Our job as practitioners is to notice when there's an ending. Can you remember the last time you went somewhere, right? Or you went somewhere and it was the last time you were able to go? Can you remember the last day that you worked somewhere? You remember your last day of school? Do you remember, if you had a dissolved relationship? Do you remember the last day of that relationship? Do you remember the last moments of it? There are so many places. You maybe were living in a home. Do you remember the last time you lived in that home, the last day you were there? There's so many ways in which we have lasts. And how do we move from those? It's interesting, in Judaism, we like to commemorate firsts, right? We like to say Shechianu, like, thank God I made it to this moment. But we could also, I think, use that when something happens for the last time. Thank God I've been able to make it to this moment, where I worked in this place for as long as I did, where I lived in this town for as long as I did, where I was a part of this club for as long as I was. It seems to me that there's lots of endings that we don't acknowledge as much as we acknowledge beginnings. But we mustn't lament the endings. We must celebrate them in the same way we celebrate beginnings, because it is part of that journey, one of those chapters, one of those pages. And it is one of those ways that we can kind of latch on to, hang on to, hold on to every moment as if it's a unique moment of our lives. So let's move on to our breathing, to our quiet, to our non-talking, and let's just concentrate on our breath. Each breath is an ending and a beginning. See if you can feel those endings, feel the beginnings, feel the potential of being someone new, someone different than you were even a breath ago. So get yourself in a comfortable yet strong position, and we'll go quiet for a little while. Just allow everything to be as it is for now. Not trying to change anything. We're not trying to solve any mysteries of our lives. If you're having a particular difficult time with something, this is an opportunity to kind of get away from it, and as you return back to it, perhaps it can be seen a little clearer. with it as your mind takes you away from your breathing. It's okay. With love, with kindness, just bring yourself back to your breath. No worries. As we bring our session to a close, we ask for certain feelings. We ask to feel safe. We ask to feel blessed. May I feel safe. May I feel blessed. And with each breath, offer yourselves one of those feelings. May I feel blessed. May I feel safe. May I feel safe. May I feel blessed. May I feel blessed and safe. And with each breath, just ask yourself one of those. Sometimes you may be safe, but you don't feel safe. I know for a fact that so many of us, if not all of us, are blessed in some way, if we will but recognize it. May I feel blessed. May I feel safe. May I feel blessed and safe. Hi, Jerry. Hi, Pedro. I hope thank you for joining me. I hope that you're able to find some peace, some stillness. May you feel blessed, and may you feel safe.